You think you can run on 6 hours of sleep. Matthew Walker says almost nobody can. And here's the terrifying part. Your brain can't tell it's failing. In his book, Why We Sleep, he shows there's one number every single night that quietly decides how long you'll live. Matthew Walker is a neuroscientist who spent over 20 years studying one thing: what happens when you close your eyes. And his conclusion is blunt. Sleep is not the lazy cousin of diet and exercise. It's the foundation both of them stand on. You can eat perfectly and train hard, but skip sleep, and Walker argues the whole structure quietly cracks. So here are the 3 biggest ideas from his book. 3 things happening in your skull tonight that you've never been taught to respect. Stick around, because idea number 3 is the number I just promised you, and it's the one that scared me most. Idea number 1. Sleep is when your memories actually get saved. Here's the twist most people miss. You think learning happens while you're awake, at the desk with the coffee. Walker shows the real work, the saving, happens while you're unconscious. And it happens twice. Picture your brain like a phone recording everything all day. Before you learn anything, sleep has to clear space on the drive. Walker describes studies where a full night of sleep before studying boosts your ability to soak up new facts by up to 40%. So the all-nighter before the big exam? You didn't just lose rest. You smashed the very machine you needed to record the information in the first place. Then comes part 2. After you learn, sleep hits save. While you're out, your brain replays the day and carries fragile new memories into long-term storage. The book describes the classic experiment. 2 groups learn the same list. One group sleeps, the other stays awake. The next day, the sleepers remember dramatically more. Same brains, same list. The only difference was a night of filing. And it's not just facts. Walker points to a piano study. Learn a tricky sequence, sleep on it, and you play it faster and more accurately the next morning without touching the keys overnight. Your brain rehearsed it for you in the dark. So that skill you just couldn't get last night? Sleep on it literally. That's the book suggestion and the data behind it. Now let me ask you something. When did you last lie in bed at 2 a.m., replaying an argument or some cringe memory from 10 years ago, feeling the heat of it all over again? Hold on to that feeling, because idea number 2 is about why that sting is supposed to fade and what happens when it doesn't. Idea number 2, dreaming is overnight therapy. This is where the book gets genuinely wild. Walker argues that REM sleep, the stage where you dream most vividly, works like an emotional first aid kit that runs while you sleep. Here's how he frames it. A hard experience gets stored with 2 things stuck together: the memory of what happened and the raw emotional charge that came with it. During REM sleep, your brain replays that memory, but in a chemical state where a key stress molecule, noradrenaline, is switched off. So you revisit the event without the fight or flight surge firing. Think of it like stripping the bitter peel off a fruit and keeping the sweet flesh inside. You wake up still remembering what happened. You keep the lesson, but the blade of the emotion is dulled. Time heals all wounds, people say. Walker's twist. It's not time. It's time spent in REM sleep. Picture the everyday version. You have a brutal fight with someone you love. That night you barely sleep, and the next morning the wound feels raw, huge, unforgivable. But a week of good nights later, you can think about it calmly. You didn't forget, you got treated. And when REM gets stolen by a late glass of wine or a string of short nights, that overnight therapist never clocks in. Walker points to this to help explain why trauma can stay razor-sharp for years. The emotion never got stripped from the memory. The raw replay just loops. And if this is already rewiring how you think about one bad night, the full book, Why We Sleep, is linked below. Walker goes far deeper than any single video can. Okay, the number I promised you. Idea number 3. Short sleep is damaging you long before you feel a single thing. This is the loop I opened at the very start. Remember, your brain can't tell it's failing. Walker calls this the silent damage. You trim your sleep down to 6 hours, then 5. By day 3, you feel adjusted. You feel fine. But fine is a story your exhausted brain tells you. In lab studies Walker cites, people held to 6 hours a night for 2 weeks performed as badly as people kept awake for 2 entire nights straight. Yet they kept rating themselves as basically okay. That's the trap. The impairment is invisible from the inside. Here's the driving version, and it's chilling. Walker points out that after roughly 19 hours awake, you're as cognitively wrecked as someone over the legal drink driving limit. Same slowed reactions. But you'd never let a drunk friend drive, while a tired you climbs behind the wheel without a second thought. Now go under the hood. Walker describes the invisible bill. Skimp on sleep, and your hunger hormones spike, so you eat more and crave sugar and carbs. Your blood sugar control slides toward pre-diabetic within a week. The immune cells that hunt down cancer can drop by around 70% after a single bad night. And deep sleep is when your brain runs its overnight cleanup, flushing out a sticky protein tied to Alzheimer's. Skip the deep sleep, skip the cleanup, and it builds. That's the number that quietly decides your lifespan. Not the one on the bathroom scale, the one on the clock, every single night. So, 3 ideas from why we sleep. 1. Sleep saves your memories, both before and after you learn. 2. Dreaming defuses your hardest emotions while you rest. 3. Short sleep silently corrodes the body and brain while whispering that you're fine. Walker's point across all 3 isn't sleep more, you lazy human. It's that sleep is doing enormous, invisible work every night, and most of us treat the most productive 8 hours of the day like dead time to be trimmed. Here's the last twist the book leaves you with. You can't bank sleep. You can't run a debt all week and repay it Sunday. The lost sleep doesn't refund, and the damage is already done. But tonight is a clean slate. According to Walker, one good night restarts all 3 engines, saving memories, running the therapy, clearing the brain. If this changed how you see your pillow, the full book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, is linked below, and it's worth every page. Follow the Wired Mind for the biggest ideas from the world's best science books every Thursday. Now to the one thing the whole book is begging you to do. Close the laptop. Go get idea number 3.